Welcome back for the final time of the 2022-2023 season to Hoops HD, everybody. This is our Hoops HD report season wrap-up show. We have a national champion, and Griggs, I got your note right here because I went to sleep early. The game was bad. It's the San Jose State Spartans. Am I
Yeah,
correct?
yeah, San Jose State winning. And again, I am on location here at the Final Four in Houston. I just got here today. I got to say the crowd's a little disappointing. There isn't really anybody here.
I hate
Uh,
to misinform you, Puppet. The North Texas Mean Green are the national champions, but apparently meant so much to Grant McCaslin that he is now the head coach at Texas Tech. So congratulations.
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he here's the oh wait, we got it wrong. It actually was UConn Huskies. There's our blow up of the bracket. Yes, UConn last night became, I think, Titel fifth team ever to go through the tournament with double digit wins across the board every single game. Just kind of rolled this whole thing, didn't they?
They did, winning by an average of 20, just unstoppable throughout. I had the pleasure of seeing them live in Vegas, and they destroyed Arkansas and then destroyed Gonzaga, which I did not think would happen. So kudos to Coach Hurley and the whole team. I knew they were good. You don't start the season 14-0 and ranked one of the best teams in the nation for nothing. But when they dropped 6 of 8 in Big East play, I'll defer to Stalika. He probably watched them closer in conference play than I did. I really thought they were not like a super team, but obviously I was dead wrong because they were a super team.
They really were. And what's interesting about this, they're the fifth team or did you say the fifth
I believe it's the fifth.
Yeah, I believe you're correct, but if it's not the fifth, then it's the sixth. Not many teams have done it. I bet even fewer have lost that many games in January and won it all.
Yeah, so well,
Yeah.
Salika, you are the Big East guys. He was deferring to you, so your thoughts.
I will say physical teams like Xavier and Marquette were able to match up a little better with UConn than teams that they had faced like Alabama and Gonzaga. Unlike teams in the Big Ten, though, they did not seem to be totally out of their comfort zone once they got out of the conference. In fact, as I'll probably allude to a little later, I think the Big East overall actually had the third most units behind the SEC, and I think it was the ACC who came in.
Not the,
No, I think it was the Big Ten who came in second.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
they had nobody passed besides
Or
me.
no, Big 12. I'm
Okay,
sorry.
yeah, Big 12.
the Big 12. Joby, let me bring in here as well this UConn team. I mean, well, you know what? They didn't have to face any Big Ten teams. They didn't have to face any Big 12 teams. That's why they won it all. They got to play two West
Exactly.
Coast Conference teams, a Metro Atlantic, an ACC, and a
And a
mediocre
Mountain
SEC team,
West team.
and a
Yeah,
Mountain West team. Right?
well, they showed in that championship game. They definitely showed they could handle physical play because if anyone can bring physical play, it is San Diego State. That is for sure. What I really liked about UConn throughout this, they just yeah, I always felt, especially in the final two games that we saw this weekend, the ball, they were so consistent at a high level. You knew you were going to get their A game. It was 100% dependent on San Diego State replicating what they did against Alabama or Miami replicating, one of their 100-point games and then to outscore them. Those were the only two pathways that, San Diego State and Miami had in the Final Four against them. And that's a compliment to Connecticut. The consistency inside, outside. I mean, the story Sonogo, it definitely deserves all of it, but it was also the guard play from Newton, et cetera, that, the balance. Not many teams show the absolute balance. And the last thing I'll say is, perfect example is that Miami team where it was so guard laden, whether it was Pack and Wong, Amir on the inside, and San Diego State, which had people like pop up like Bradley in the semifinals, et cetera. But let's face it, it was the balance that UConn gave. No one in the tournament, not Houston, not Kansas, none of the other big teams seemed to have that balance, and UConn perfected it.
Yeah, and Taitel, when you look at it, they gave up exactly 59 points in both the semifinal and the championship game, pretty much right around that same number through every single game here. Because I was just, I just felt watching that game last night that San Diego State had no shot to score, especially, other than a little run where they kind of felt where UConn seemed to half fall asleep, and then they woke up again, and that was it though. But you go inside, they can't. All they could have maybe is a contested three, and sure, you make a couple of those, you make a run, but that was it.
Yeah, I believe if my stat memory is right, that San Diego State did not have a single layup in the first half. And it's not because Donovan Kling and the 7-2 Giant was blocking like 7 shots. It's not because Sonogo was like knocking people into the stands. It's just like the whole team was focused and they rotate and they shift and they cut off angles. And Andre Jackson runs around and does everything. Like, as much as their offense deserves credit for like scoring 80 against some great teams earlier in the tournament, the defense, I think, really won it for them. The Aztecs are a great team, but if you hold anybody to 59, you deserve to be a champ, right?
Absolutely. I hold back to back, two Final Four teams to exactly 59 points. And Griggs, I only got to give a little shout out here to that the other semifinal of that San Diego State Florida Atlantic game, which was the game of the weekend.
Yeah, and one of the better games of the tournament. San Diego,
The only buzzer beater we saw
yeah,
this year or last year combined, the only true
and
buzzer beater.
it was played at a high level. I love the storyline coming into the game. You had a San Diego State team who had been successful and been good and been in the top 25, but had never been past the Sweet 16, I don't think, in their history. And you had a Florida Atlantic team that had never been good, period.
Had never won an NCAA tournament game. Been in it once, it was 0-1. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't even realize, you had to correct me. They had been the one tournament before, so maybe they were good one year, but
No,
yeah.
They won. They were in the A-Sun back then, and what was then known as the Trans-America. They won the conference tournament one year and came in as a very low seed and got lost.
But even by CUSA standards, this had not been a successful program, and it was just incredible. I thought I loved the intensity of the game. I thought it was played at a very high level. It was really exciting. Uh, and Florida Atlantic, I think, had a lead for what felt like 30 minutes, but the entire game felt like it was played within a very tight window. It was big plays. It was good defense. It was just an entertaining game. And yeah, for it to come down to the buzzer, I think that is going to sting for a little bit. One of the things about the tournament and really about college basketball in general, that is that unless you win the last one, you're always going to think about what it would have been like to win one more. But Florida Atlantic, I hope that once the sting wears off, they feel really, really good about this. K-State is probably feeling the same way. Oh, damn, we almost made the Final Four. I don't think they've been in a long time. And Florida Atlantic's probably thinking, God, we almost made the championship game. But the Final Four, and in addition to UConn winning it all, had 3 incredible storylines with San Diego State, Florida Atlantic, and I would say Miami too, and Jim Larrañaga, who in his second Final Four, I know that I'm on to another topic now, has won at a level at 2 schools that those schools had never, ever experienced in their history. And I don't know what you got to do to get in the Hall of Fame, but I kind of think he belongs there, not just because of what he's done, but where he's done it compared to what those programs were like when he wasn't there.
Titel, is he a Hall of Famer now?
He's getting darn close. The resume is amazing. As the puppet said, Final Fours with separate schools in general is amazing, but to do it at GMU, which I assure you, like, Miami's got NIL money. Like, they can go out and get the best players that money can buy, literally. But there's no way that GMU, ironically, against UConn back in 06 or 07, I forget, did it.
06.
06. It was amazing. If he's not there yet, he's really, really close.
And Stalika, how about this Florida Atlantic program, getting back to them? I think as a result of what they did, we should promote them out of under the radar for next season.
It would seem that way, plus a few of their peer schools in UAB, Charlotte, North Texas, the list could go on. We'll also be looking ahead to 2024, where assuming that roster is going to be almost entirely intact, the Owls could be looking at a top 5, and it's going to be virtually impossible for them to go under the radar, and actually be a bit of a disappointment if they don't come close to running the table in the American next year.
Yeah, they are moving into the American. That was which is not for now is
Yeah.
not considered by us as being under the radar conference. But Joby, I've actually already seen some preseason top 10, top 25 lists, which I think are meaningless before we get through the transfer portal stuff. The one I saw today had FAU ranked number 5 in the nation. I assume all these guys come back. Is that how good this team might be next year?
Yeah. Why wouldn't they come back? Because they've already proven that they can do elements. They're in a great location. I think NIL money will actually come to them being in Boca. I just can't see how
Just that extra Miami money, just funnel it up north a little
a
bit.
lot of people go up the coast. So if they are all there, this is certainly I hate to say, Final Four team and so premature, but at least say top 10 and what team to watch. And I will be surprised if, they could fall out of top 25 with a weird run or something here or there, but this is not an under the radar. And the American, remember, the American does lose Houston and a bunch of folks, but with Florida Atlantic coming in with with the schools that Stalika mentioned, basketball will still be strong in the American, even after the losses, which actually take away Cincinnati, et cetera, that will occur in the American to the Big 12.
Yeah, and Griggs, you mentioned the other schools there. I'll give a quick shout out here. North Texas, another one of those schools that's going from Conference USA to the American, was our NIT champion, beating yet another one of those CUSA to American schools, UAB, in the finals. Charlotte, another one of those same schools, won the CBI this year. So,
Right.
great postseason for these Conference USA transition to American schools.
It really was. And it kind of makes you wonder, and you can talk about this all day long. How good was CUSA, and why didn't the metrics show it? And why was Florida Atlantic getting a 9 seed? Was their only team that was anywhere close to the bubble? And does something need to be done to get good teams that aren't in power leagues more opportunities, especially late in the year?
Well, maybe being in the
And
same conference.
If you don't mind me saying, because of the metrics mentioning, the metrics actually did show it. North Texas was a top 50 team. UAB was right on the edge of the top 50 in the net. These were good wins. Florida Atlantic was finished the year like 14th, 15th in the net. I mean, so you actually had legit, but the problem was, and you hit on it, Griggs, is they didn't have many scalps out of conference. Florida Atlantic obviously had the win over Florida, and Florida was disappointing. So that didn't turn into the great win like, San Diego State, St. Mary's did, for instance.
Yeah.
Well, does it not? Is it not with next year with them? I know that Houston and Cincinnati and UCF are going to be going for the American, but you're still going to have Memphis there. Temple is historically a very good program. They're slight step up in competition over some of the bottom feeders that they've had in conference.
Yeah.
Say, Joey and Griggs, wouldn't that help a little next year though with the same group of teams?
Yeah, you won't have the drop off. Like for instance, North Texas lost to Rice. Okay.
Well, Rice is moving with them though. So
Rice is moving with them. Yeah, excellent point. But North Texas lost. Yeah, in that particular case.
Yeah.
But that loss, the echo effect, even of Rice then losing, going subpar in that conference. The fact of the matter is, it doesn't kill you as much losing to East Carolina, even though East Carolina, I don't know, might wind up 10-20. Yeah, but East Carolina, it's a constant effect. We saw this in the Mountain West. You heard me complain about it all year. If all of a sudden you have better numbers within the conference, even the bad will not drag you down that much. I mean, Louisville, as a perfect example, was 4-25 at the end of the year, but their net wasn't 360. Their net, like it would for Monmouth, they were like right around 300, 290. So,
one of the things, he's not here tonight, unfortunately, but Rocco Miller was beating the Florida Atlantic drum as early as December. And I thought for a while, like when he said that he thought Florida Atlantic should be a protected seeder, that they were that good, he was saying it in the same context that I was saying San Jose State belonged inside the bubble. He wasn't really serious. And then we were talking one time via tech. No, he really did think they were that good. And in hindsight, he was right. And the net, they were ranked in the net. The metrics did like them, but everyone just dismissed them as like, oh, it's a glitch in the net. They've gamed the systems. For some reason, it favors them. It's overvaluing them. I think that was what most people thought. I think that's what most of us thought. And I think that that's what most experts thought too. Well, it wasn't. Florida Atlantic, I don't know about 5th overall, but how can you not say that they weren't one of the 10 best teams in the country? And they probably were all year long, right in plain sight. And all of us, except Rocco, missed it.
Well, you want to compare it to, let's compare it to the 2006 Missouri Valley. If you want to talk about gaming the RPI and gaming the net, I don't think anyone got beyond the Sweet 16, if I'm not mistaken, when you had teams
Wichita
like Southern
and Bradley got to the Sweet 16 that year,
but not beyond.
Yeah.
Let's face it, the Mountain West did game the net this year. San Diego State got the Final Four, but Utah State and Boise did.
Okay, hey, Joby, I want to give you a couple seconds here. Do you want to make any apologies to the Mountain West after the team of the championship game?
I will make it. Be honest, I will make an apology to San Diego State. They earned it. The conference as a whole stinks. I will say this: San Diego State did. There were two elements that showed San Diego State in its glory and its downfall, and that is in the semifinals, the ridiculous number of offensive rebounds, 8 at one in a short stretch of offensive rebounds.
That's what won them the game. That's what
won them the game, and that is credit to the hustle, defense, and just absolute, gotta want it, so to speak, that San Diego State has, and that is all to hats off. Then there was a play against Connecticut where San Diego State was trying to back down Sonogo, and Sonogo just said no, and it just bounced backwards off. I don't know if you remember this, and it turned into a hook shot that went off the front of the rim. I can't remember if it was. I can't remember who it was, but it might have been Leday. But and I'm just sitting there going, they met their match. They did Alabama. They bullied Alabama, for God's sake.
I'll give you credit, Joby. When we were talking about West most of the season and you were ripping on them, you normally said, with the exception of San Diego State, that what you did have that qualifier in there most of the season. I'll give you credit for that at least. Beyond the UConn Huskies and the other men's champions, we had a few other champions. Crowd, I just want to give them a shout out here. Titel, starting with the women's champion LSU, with the win over Iowa in the women's championship game that did not come without a little bit of controversy due to the officiating in that game.
Shattered ratings records, and you get Angel Reese against Caitlin Clark. You get Kim Mulkey winning titles at multiple schools, the first women's coach to ever do that. So plenty of good storylines. The controversy, as Chad mentioned, a little "do you see me or not so much" by Angel towards Caitlin at the end of the game. Put the ring on my finger, the whole thing. And then Jill Biden decides, why not? I'll wade into this controversy and say, let's invite both teams to the White House, even though Iowa is a very important political state, and even though the team that's American won, the team did not. So it's becoming a huge mess. I think it'll eventually die down. I don't think that Iowa should go to the White House, because the whole point of is you should win a championship to go. Not that I'm the president; they can do whatever the heck they want.
They should go to the vice president's house, right?
Sure, Naval Observatory.
And San Diego State also.
I think one of the other things we're also overlooking was Iowa actually getting to the title game to begin with and knocking out what was then an undefeated South Carolina team, because we all thought it was probably going to be the Gamecocks and the Tigers facing off for the national championship game. So didn't quite come out that way.
Yeah.
But
what a showcase.
My Wahoo, Don Staley, having a very serious press conference for those who did not see it, because there was a lot of, South Carolina was a tough team. No two ways about it. But she, to her credit, and I'm biased, obviously, but I will defend Dawn here. She defended her players. And this is why people want to play for Dawn Staley. This is exactly why women want to play for Dawn Staley. She defended her players. She called out those that had said derogatory things in the press, mainstream press. We're talking not like, bloggers and message boards, and, using words like thug and stuff like that. And I really appreciated her just setting the record straight in that regard. I'm, like I said, I'm biased because I have a ridiculous amount of respect for Dawn, but Coach Staley. That's why you will be a power. That is why you have built a powerhouse in Columbia.
Yeah, the viewership for that game, and this was cable television, not a free-to-air channel, if those even exist anymore, 9.9 million, more than the average NBA finals game. A very big showcase for women's college basketball. That is awesome.
Yeah, that was great for the women's game. Shout out to two other women's champions. Kansas wins the WNIT. California Baptist, the WBI. Did you even know there was a women's version of the CBI? Well, there is.
Yeah.
California Baptist. D2 level. Nova Southeastern was your men's champion, and Ashland, I think it's Sleek out of your Ohio area, wins the women's championship there.
Yeah, we're just a little bit north of Mansfield.
At the D3 level, we talked about it a couple weeks ago. Christopher Newport, Titel, you went to college with their head coach, I believe.
John Picorian, class of '96. Love it.
They won the first ever D3 championship and the first ever national championships at the D3 women's level. First ever national championship in any sport, I believe, for the school. Transylvania. I didn't even know they let schools from Eastern Europe into the NCAA. But Transylvania wins the D3 women's championship. NEIA, College of Idaho wins the men's championship, and Clark of Iowa wins the women's championship. That's maybe the school that should go to the White House. They're from Iowa. They did win a championship.
Ironic. Clark from Iowa.
Yeah.
But I guess on that note, that's our champion. Those are all of our champions. And I want to kind of give you each here a chance to take as much time as you like to just give your thoughts on the Final Four, the entire NCAA tournament, the entire season as a whole here. Anything else we want to open up? I'll kind of go to each of you here. And Sleeka, why don't I start with you?
Well, a couple things for San Diego State right here. We saw both the Dayton Flyers and the Aztecs actually make some pretty significant runs in 2020. Obviously, we never got to see how that tournament shaped out because I think the Aztecs were the last remaining undefeated team that year, when probably on pace for a 1 seed or a 2
Very
seed
close
themselves.
to it, yeah.
I mean, it's a little bit 3 years later than what you would expect. So at least they, unlike the Flyers, at least got a little bit of chance for redemption at the short term. And then on the second, I guess on another final thought, I will look at the Big East one more time. We're talking about a conference that actually has a title for the first time post Villanova, who had ended up getting a pair of titles back in 2016, 2018. So clearly there was a sense of rejuvenation for UConn here. It only took about 3 years since they actually rejoined the conference. But you look at next year, how that conference is going to be. I mean, you not just have Hurley and UConn, you're going to have Shaka and Marquette, you're going to have Sean Miller and Xavier, and now you get more fuel to the fire with Rick Pitino going to St. John's and Ed Cooley going down 95 to DC. It's going to be a whale of a conference to watch next season.
I still got DePaul winning it. I don't know about you.
I am more excited about Georgetown going to Providence than I was about the Final Four.
It's going to be a fun game next year.
Yeah.
The amp is going to be amped.
Yeah.
Joby, how about you?
The one I really appreciate is mentioned Rocco, bringing us to Florida Atlantic. I agreed. And this entire group, by the way, on our brackets, we were constantly saying on our own personal brackets, oh, Florida Atlantic, not a top 4 seed like we probably should have, but we were edging to like 6, 7s and that sort of thing. But man, I mentioned the offensive rebounding. What Coach May is probably going to run drills on is blocking out on free throws. My gosh, 4 in the second half. I mean, I don't know if I saw 4 watching college basketball all year. I mean, after the first one, after the second one, call your timeout and just get your guys to put a body on someone. That is what, because Florida Atlantic was playing outstanding defense to get to that point. San Diego State seemed like they couldn't score unless they had like 5 shots at it, and Florida Atlantic allowed them that. So it's the moments that we kind of remember like that. I hope that Florida Atlantic will get another shot at a run, and it's great to see Coach May stay. And next year, will the American once again, as the Conference USA did this year, if Florida Atlantic wins that game and then upsets UConn, man, you only send 4 teams to the postseason and you're undefeated in them. That's pretty good work.
Yeah. Titel.
I wanted to thank you guys for giving me the forum to do this, which gives me the access to get a press pass for the tournament. It's one thing to like get to sit near, not that I sat near, I was way up high in the T-Mobile Arena, but to get to like walk up to a guy like Drew Timme and like stand a few feet away from him and ask him questions about his life and his career, and to get to ask Coach Few a question at the press conference, and to meet Tiger Campbell's dad and Andre Jackson's mom, like the access is just amazing. And I couldn't get it without you guys. So I'd really, really appreciate it because it was fantastic. As far as a final thought on the season, as a historian of the game, one thing that caught my eye, I don't know if you guys talked about it last month while I was busy doing 10,000 other things, but Darius McGee at Liberty, the 3-point specialist, actually tied Steph Curry's all-time record of 162 threes in a single season. And it was quite eventful. So he lost by 1 to Kennesaw State in the conference tourney by going 0 for 11 from behind the arc. So I thought he was done. But they got an NIT bid. He scored 5 more against Villanova from 3-point land, and then 4 more at Wisconsin to tie Steph Curry's record. Do I think he's going to be the next Steph Curry? No freaking way. Am I glad that he tied a record that might stand for a long time in college as one of the best 3-point shooters ever? You better believe it.
Greg, before I go to you, I
Yeah.
was going through all the tournaments, and I forgot to mention one of them.
Okay.
So just want to bring it up here. So unfortunately, we had a little bit of breaking news about the one other tournament for this
Oh,
year, the
yes,
AC8.
yes,
Unfortunately, it was canceled. You see there, as all the funds that we're going to use to pay for the event were spent cleaning up a Vegas hotel that you were seen partying, and right before UConn's men's basketball team showed up for the West Regional. You want to explain that a little?
Well, well, earlier, Chad, you were originally going to represent me, and you had said not to talk about it. Today, you said you are no longer representing me, and now you're asking me to discuss it. I just want to be sure I understand this. But we were in Vegas at the hotel for an AC8 meeting, and it got pretty fun, and that's all I remember.
I do have any final thoughts on the season then?
Yeah, quite a few. I've been kind of stepping out of puppet character, but still doing it as the puppet. I've been concerned the last couple of years about the direction of college basketball, the health of the game, and whether or not it would continue to be appealing at the level that it has been. I didn't know. I didn't know one way or another. I just didn't know with the NIL, with the transfer portal, and with it becoming so transfer heavy, would it? Would people relate to it the way that they had in the past when it might be harder to get to know the players? Would the gap between the haves and the have-nots widen? And then all of a sudden this year, while the regular season may have lagged at points, the NCAA tournament had great ratings. And of the Final Four, 3 of the teams were there for what I think was the first time. So, and one of them was an under-the-radar school. So in that regard, at least in the immediate, at least right now, not only has it not had an effect, it seems like the under the radar schools are as competitive as they've ever been. I would like to,
I'll throw it out there.
yeah, go out there.
Mountain West just a couple of years ago was relegated to under the radar as well. So we got 2 schools that were
Right,
under
yeah.
the radar just a few years ago.
Yeah, and I will say that while I am for the rights of student athletes and the welfare of student athletes, one of the things that is troubling to me, and this is more so in men's basketball and maybe football too than other sports, is the number of athletes or players that enter the portal that are coming from a Division I school and do not receive any D1 or D2 offers. It sort of breaks your heart a little bit to see the numbers being what they are, like in the hundreds of kids that had a scholarship, had a school, and had a place to play that ended up with nothing. Prior to the one and done rule, it used to be upsetting to see the 30 or 40 players declare for the NBA draft that could have been high caliber college players that went undrafted and ended up with nothing. This is 2 and 3 times that. Kids that are going into the portal that have nowhere to go. That would be one thing that I don't know what to do about it, but I wish the NCAA would examine it. I think they will. And the other thing, and there isn't really anything you can do about this, is think of all of the compelling games that we would love to see played that aren't played, like Houston and Texas. I guess we're going to get to see that one for at least 1 year. But yeah, I mean, we could list 100 of them. Wichita State and Kansas, and Maryland and Georgetown, and the list goes on and on. Xavier, Dayton, if you want to go down the list a little bit. Even some of the old Ohio Valley rivalries, Murray and Moorhead, don't play anymore. There seems to be this tendency to where if you don't want to play a team, you don't have to, you can simply avoid them. That only exists in college basketball, whereas in nowhere else in the world are you able to do that. And I don't think it's good for the game. While bye games are necessary, and while I think that you need them to an extent, I just think that it took too long for the pace of the season to pick up. And it's not good for the fans, but it's not good for the teams either that play in under the radar conferences that are really good that might not get those chances because teams simply choose to avoid them. And those are kind of the two things that I want to see the NCAA maybe address if they can, that I think that would benefit both the players and the quality of the game. And lastly, to echo what John said, I mean, this is great. We're all massive college basketball fans. I was such a college basketball fan that I couldn't just watch it and talk about it. I had to do something that submerged myself into it. This allows me to feel like I'm an active participant in college basketball, even though I'm really not. I'm an active participant with you guys. It's fun to wake up every morning and have the list of games every day and the podcasts every week. And I hope we keep doing this for another 40 years.
Okay. Well, I've got to echo that as well. I want to thank all of you and everyone who's else from HoopsHD that couldn't join us tonight, but has been with us throughout the season on just another great year here. We are going kind of into off-season mode right now. We're going to try at least once a month during the off-season to go back with it with another podcast, maybe get some special guests and stuff during the off-season. Come end of October, we're going to start with our preseason content for next year. If you look up there or over there on the website, you'll see the countdown clock is running as we record. This is 215 days, 15 hours, 18 minutes, and 7 seconds away from the start of our next season. So Zach can enjoy his UConn championship trophy until then, and then he's got to give it back. But
right, yeah.
On behalf tonight, at least, from David Griggs and John Titel up here, John Sleeka and Joby Fortson down below, I do want to thank everyone for joining us for another great season. And we're all starting to get ready and looking forward now to the 2024 Final Four coming to Phoenix. There it is on the screen. 23 is over. Thanks for joining us for another season, everybody. And we'll talk to you again about a month from now.